All right, so how to spot a lying Section 8 tenant. So this is what this video is about. And I always say that if you put a good tenant in your property and you have reserve funds, then those are the two things that you need to be successful as a landlord, as a real estate investor, no matter if it's commercial, residential, whether you have 100 units or 2 units. Putting a good paying tenant in there and having reserve funds. But if I had to pick between the two, which one is more important? It's going to be the tenant, putting a good tenant in your property, no matter what. That's the most important factor, the most important decision you will make when it comes to being a landlord. Of course, you want reserve funds because when things happen, you're going to need money, but you might be able to kind of like finesse your way, or kind of like say if you need to borrow money from somebody or use credit cards, or you might can finesse your way a little bit until you like get in a better situation, a better position, start saving up your money. But once you put a tenant in there, you hand all the leverage you have as the owner, as the landlord, over to them. Once they sign that lease, they got all the leverage now. So you want somebody good in that property. And like I said, today in this video, we're going to talk about how to spot lying tenants, because they are out there. Professional tenants who just go around destroying place after place after place. They're out there. You need to know how to spot them. We're going to talk about that today. And I wanted to touch on this because this is something that I'm about to be doing. As some of you may know, I'm currently traveling to Houston to finish up the repairs and renovations of that property, which is going to be a Section 8 rental. Like I said before, when I bought it, it had all light color carpet. It was brand new. The owner put that in there before they sold it. And it was no sense of me ripping the carpet up before I put a tenant in there. So I put the tenant in there. She moved. The carpet was bad. And it's pretty much expected. It's going to be bad. It was light color carpet. She had a bunch of kids. It is what it is. You kind of know that. So I said, as soon as it's vacant, as soon as I go through turnover, I'm going to put luxury vinyl throughout the entire place. And that's what I've been doing. Now, I could have just called my handyman to do it, but handyman prices are getting a little more expensive. And it's something that I can do. And I enjoy going out to Houston anyway. Every time we go, me and my wife, we like make a trip out of it. And I brought her with me this time. I know the last time I went by myself, but this time she came. It's work hard, play hard. So when we're there, we're working, getting our hands dirty. She's right there with me in the trenches, getting her hands dirty. And once we do what we got to do with the house, then we're able to spend time together. We'll go out. I know this last time we went, it was during the time of the Commanders game. I'm a big Commanders fan, DMV. And they're playing the Lions. We crushed the Lions and we went out, had a good time, had some good food. Yeah, so our experience in Houston, when we go there, we really have a good time. Unfortunately, my Commanders lost to the Eagles in the NFC conference game, but that's another story. We'll be back next year. But yeah, that property down in Houston is pretty much done. All the major stuff is done. We just got some small minor things to do, but I'm probably going to list it pretty soon. And I'm about to be going through the screening process. So now back here in Maryland, one of my clients who is also a Section 8 investor, she actually has a contract on a house in the top paying zip code. Is going to be a Section 8 rental. So we'll be closing on that pretty soon. Actually, she just closed on the property about 2 months ago. She just closed on the property, so she's getting another property. Shout out to her. She's also one of my mentors. It's important to have mentors who've been doing what you do, but who've been doing it longer, who have more experience. They can pass that knowledge down to you. And just like me, I'm a mentor, but I have a mentor. So if I'm mentoring you, you're not only leveraging my knowledge and expertise, you're leveraging the expertise that I get from my mentors who've been doing this 20 and 30 years. So, but it's important to have a mentor. And this particular client, since she's going to be going through the screening process pretty soon. Well, actually, she's going through it right now. She has another property in Baltimore. She's screening tenants for it. And every now and then we'll just, exchange stories and she'll give me tips and stuff like that. And she just emailed me, and it was regarding a tenant, a Section 8 tenant trying to rent one of her properties that's in Baltimore, and a few of the red flags that came up, and she was just expressing that to me. And the email pretty much says, yesterday I received a pre-qualification form from a prospective tenant for and then her property. So the way she does it, she has these pre-qualification forms before they get to the actual application, because if they're going to apply online, they have to pay to submit an application. And she wants them to be pre-qualified before it even gets to that point. She don't want them to have to pay, which is a good idea. I actually started implementing this. She doesn't want them to actually pay and then not be, not even qualified to stay. And then they wasted their money and then they feel some type of way. So, and this is also smart too, because in some states, if the tenant they pay for an application. If they don't get it, if you don't have a certain disclosure on the application as the landlord, then the tenant can get their money back. So that's important as well to make sure you have that disclosure on the application. And the disclosure pretty much says what's the criteria of the application. Like, how will you be processing these applications? What are you going to be looking for? Background checks. Are you going to check their work history? Are you going to check their rental history? You checking their credit. So it has to say all that, exactly what you're going to be doing when it comes to screening tenants. If you don't, then some states, they can get their money back. So like I said, what she does the pre-qualification first. This limits people from wasting their money. All right, so back to the email. So the tenant has a voucher. Her rent is paid in full. Her utilities are also paid in full. I mean, this is good for a landlord. If the housing authority is going to pay their rent in full, perfect. There were a lot of court cases, fortunately. So she looked her name up. So this is part of her pre-qualification screening process. She'll look her name up and see what comes up on the state judiciary case search site. And sometimes landlords, for whatever reason, they won't actually file a court case. They just want the tenant to leave. So it was fortunate that there were a lot of court cases that had been filed against her. Now, that does say something. If it's a lot of court cases that a landlord had to file on you, that says something, because a lot of times they won't even file. All right, so this offered an opportunity for me to see prior addresses. Lots of addresses is always a red flag for me anyway. If you see a tenant that's moving, constantly moving, that's a red flag, especially if you have a voucher. Why are you constantly moving? And the housing authority is paying all your rent. Why do you just keep bouncing around from place to place? It's not adding up. What I discovered in 2 cases was that the landlord sold the property she was living in for less than purchase price. Big red flag. So if you see that her tenant's prior addresses, those houses were sold after the tenant moved, that's a red flag. And if it was sold for less than what that landlord purchased it for, because no landlord wants to buy a property and then sell it for less. Who wants to do that? That means it had to be significant damage that the tenant caused, which made it not even worth keeping the property or putting the money back into the property and fixing it up. It's just, you might as well sell it and it's just accept your loss. Just whatever, just take the L. That's a huge red flag. Her current reason for moving is that she said the landlord didn't fix anything. Another red flag for me. A part of your screening process, you need to ask them, why are they moving? Like, what is your reason for leaving your old place? A lot of times they'll blame it on the landlord. The landlord didn't fix anything. When they say that, it's a red flag, because when you're dealing with Section 8, landlords have to fix things, especially if it's dealing with the safety or the sanitary of the property. We have to. The place gets inspected once a year from the housing authority. If things aren't fixed, we'll end up failing. We have a certain amount of time to get it fixed. And if we don't, they'll stop paying us. Like, they can hold our rent. So when a tenant says, oh, the landlord didn't fix anything, the tenant, they can easily report the landlord to the housing authority and let them know, like, hey, this landlord is not fixing this. This is broke. The heat broke. They're not fixing nothing. And the housing authority will, reach out to the landlord, and vice versa. If a landlord is having problems with a tenant, we can also reach out to the housing authority, get in contact with the tenant's caseworker, and try to resolve the issue. So if there's ever an issue where the landlord is not doing what the landlord is supposed to do, the tenant can easily reach out to the housing authority and try to solve the issue. Now, that don't mean we have to completely renovate the place, put new this, new that, new granite countertops, new appliances. We don't have to do that, but we do have to keep the place safe and sanitary. Certain systems of the house that are supposed to be operable, they're supposed to work, like the AC in the summer or the heat in the winter. As a landlord, we got to get that fixed. So if the roof is leaking, we got to get that fixed, or else the housing authority will hold our rent until we get these things fixed. Now, it sounds like this tenant would mess up things, break things, destroy things, and the landlord wanted them out of the place. That's more so what it sounds like. The pictures I saw, and this is good too, because she was able to see pictures of the house. The pictures I saw in one of the listings showed tons of damage far beyond normal wear and tear. This particular client of mine, she does her research, she investigates, she gets to the bottom of it. And she was able to see the pictures of one of the properties that this tenant was living in. And the pictures were bad. It was beyond wear and tear. Normal wear and tear is usually like paint, of course, carpet might be damaged. That's normal wear and tear. Maybe minor damage here and there. But she's saying she saw pictures and it was just outside of the normal wear and tear, outside of the scope of that. And that's a sign exactly of how your house is gonna look, because people don't change. However they live, that's just how they live. You're not gonna see someone's house and it's dirty, then they go move into this house and they just keep it clean. No, People are who they are. If you're clean, you can live in the ghetto in the most dirty neighborhood and your house will be clean. If you're dirty, you can live in the best neighborhood, the most prestigious neighborhood, big, nice, clean house, and your house is going to end up being dirty. That's just what it is. So this is a tenant who is constantly able to move into nice places every couple of years because the places are so torn up that the landlord's rent is abated following failed inspections, or landlord decides to sell rather than repair, just like I was talking about. At this point, the landlord just takes the L. Like, you know what? I'm just gonna sell it. It's not worth me repairing all this stuff. It's too much damage. Or the housing authority say, hey, you gotta get this fixed. You gotta get this fixed. It's because this is not livable. This type of tenant is the reason why a lot of people don't want to rent to voucher holders. Those of us who do not fully vet, this is exactly where we can land. If you don't vet your tenants right, if you don't screen these tenants, this can happen to you. Someone can like completely tear up your place and you might not even have the money. You don't even have the money or the energy. You don't want to put forth the effort into repairing and renovations and getting this place rented again. Sometimes you just might want to say, you know what? Let me just sell it for much cheaper. You know, if you're selling it to another investor. Let me tell you something about investors. Investors usually don't like paying full price for nothing. They want to get discounts. They want to lowball. They want to see where they can take all types of angles to get deals. So you're going to have to come up off that price a lot, especially if it's in terrible condition. So you're going to lose a lot of money. Her former landlords, that's what they chose to do. So the places had to be terrible. And screening tenants is so important. You don't want to end up in that situation. It can completely bankrupt your business. It can put you out of business. That's why it's really important to screen these tenants. Don't have the mindset of this is a Section 8 tenant. I just want the guaranteed on-time payments. I'm just ready for that money to start coming in. Don't have that mindset because trust me, it will come back and it will bite you. It's best to find the perfect tenant for the place rather than just rushing because you're like, man, I need to hurry up and start getting money. So let me just put somebody in there. Because if you do, this can happen to you. And this is like I was saying, this is the reason why it's the stigma with Section 8 tenants. It's like people don't want to rent to them. Landlords are like completely against it, especially if they had a bad experience. A lot of times landlords won't look at what they did to put themselves in that situation. They'll look at what the tenant did to put them in that situation. But it could be avoided if you have a thorough screening and vetting process. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of Section 8 tenants that fit the stereotype that comes with Section 8, but there are a lot who are good tenants too. So like I said, landlords, you just got to find the good ones. And that's with anything, just like police officers. There are some police officers who are bad police officers. They might go around flexing their authority and think they can break the law, think they're above the law. But then there are a lot of good cops as well. There are a lot of law-abiding police officers who enforce the law and who are fair. So no matter what, there are going to be some people who are good and honest people, and then some people who aren't. It is what it is. So if you like this video, I encourage you to watch this video. It's kind of similar to this, but I'm giving you like personal experiences that I've had dealing with people who are trying to move into my place. You can watch that video. I posted it maybe a year or so ago, but it's relevant to what I'm talking about in this video. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. And like always, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.